The Asturis city is complete, which means we need to take a look at it, thoroughly take a look at it. So, in this video, I prepared more than 60 cinematic shots that are just going to showcase all the little projects around the city and the city as a whole as we built it over the past 2 years, roughly. Well, anyways, so let's talk about the various projects, where we started, how the city actually started, how I planned it. That question actually comes up a lot, how I planned Asturis. I didn't. I kind of didn't. I did have some rough plan for the start of the city, but then it was just thinking about the various little expansions of it, and eventually it is what it is. There were some plans for the general layout of especially the railways. That's what I did right from the beginning, but that's it. Obviously, I already had to plan the position of the space elevator. This is my custom map, so I already knew where I would like to expand the city, so I built it. These valleys I built so that they would fit, they would accept some kind of large metropolis there. But eventually those plans obviously changed as I just kept building. But anyways, let's now focus on the individual projects. So let's start with the space elevator. That was actually somewhat simple to put together. It was done in just a single episode, I guess if you don't count the lighting overhaul towards the end. But still, it was very straightforward because the geometry of it was already established by the base structure. That is, of course, the Ace Combat space elevator. So, you know, with the basic shape of it, I was already done very quickly because it was already there. I just improved it with the mothership building, with the Apple headquarters, just making these kinds of plazas on the top for the flying trains, and then, of course, the harbors, do all the barges around. Unfortunately, that was supposed to be the main thing for the city, to have the barges just move around the space elevator bay a lot, but unfortunately the barges are no longer working. But oh well, it is what it is. But the flying train is working, and the flying train is looking really, really nice. So this particular project was somewhat planned, but at the same time, it was not really all that complicated. It was just some sort of detailing that was clear how it needs to continue. But what was much more difficult was, of course, planning the entire city, the rest of the city. Now, at first, I just wanted to build like a big transportation hub, and eventually I did, but it was supposed to be completely different, right in the center of the city. That would have some sort of geometry, some sort of uniform geometry going on, with the rest of the city somewhat random, somewhat more chaotic. So from the space elevator, there is the flying train. It just goes straight to the mainland. And there I wanted to have it have some kind of nicer uniform looking geometry with the rest of the railways. So I built the high-speed railway, which is exactly perpendicular to the flying train's path. The high-speed railway cuts across the entire map. It does not bend at all. It's completely straight. It just cuts through the mountains, cuts through the reservoir, as you will see, and it's just mercilessly going straight to really achieve those high speeds by the high-speed trains. But that is actually the only uniform geometry in the entire city. Then I wanted to do, well, let me actually talk about how at first I wanted to build it. So I downloaded some modular train station building from the workshop with already finished platforms and the roof over it. And I just wanted to have that as the main part of the train station. It was actually kind of small. It was much smaller compared to what I eventually built over here. But first and foremost, it was just boring. It would be just the ordinary looking train station as you download it from the workshop. It was some French station, I believe. Nice looking, sure, but still kind of small and kind of too ordinary. So then I started experimenting with my own custom platforms, which was kind of new to me at this point. I just wanted to do all these kinds of tracks around, not just for the passenger trains, but also for cargo, and all these kinds of side tracks where some of the trains are just going to be parked and all that kind of stuff. Then I started thinking about the roofs of over the platforms and some sort of details, the different levels and those kinds of things. And eventually, I just randomly started experimenting with the orientation of the train tracks, and this is the result. So there are a couple of dead-end tracks, dead-end platforms. There are just these various like rays of the tracks just radiating from this area in all kinds of directions. Some are going straight, some are slightly bending. You know, it's just kind of random, but at the end of the day, much more interesting compared to if it was completely ordinary, completely uniform and very symmetric and all that kind of stuff. Buildings, those are obviously huge in this entire city, in this entire series. How am I planning using all the buildings? Again, I don't. So with the train station building, I was just test fitting all these kinds of structures around. I had a rough idea what I wanted to do. I wanted to do just some kind of train station looking structure. Now, it was kind of clear that I need to make it custom. I need to just use procedural objects and just improve the various shapes to make it fit. But it just needed to be big. It just needed to be a bit more monumental. Like you need to see it from the distance. So this is again the result. These like quarter circle buildings that are going over the tracks, forming the main station structure. On the sides of the main station building, there is that honeycomb building from real life that I forgot the name of. And on the opposite end, there is the Konpeki Plaza from Cyberpunk. So that was completely random as well, just test fitting various structures. If something fits, I'm going to use it, and then just, you know, repeat that in the entire city at the end of the day. So obviously that's a completely different process compared to real life. In real life, you usually have some sort of plot of land, and you're just going to design the building to fit that plot of land. If the city is more gritty, more uniform, it's a little bit more straightforward. If you need to fill some sort of irregular shape, then obviously it gets more difficult, but then again, not that much. And eventually you end up with buildings that exactly fit their positions in the city. In City Skylines, it's exactly the opposite. You already have the assets, you already have all the tools, and you just need to, like puzzle pieces, you just need to fit them together. And exactly like puzzle pieces, or at least that's how I build them usually, you're just going to find the pieces that have some sort of distinct image on them, some kind of nicely recognizable thing. So you're just going to find those and build these little clusters of puzzle pieces. At first, they are disconnected from each other, but as they grow, they start connecting, and right towards the end, you're just going to fill in all the gaps, you know. You're going to build the sky or something, the pieces that are really hard to find, those kinds of things. That's exactly how I built Asturis. So you're going to see that actually in the next video. The next video is going to be the supercut of the before and after transitions. I'm not going to talk in there. It's just going to be some background music. It's going to be relatively short. So there you are immediately going to see how the entire project progressed, if you don't remember, because, you know, it's been years, obviously. But anyways, so I built the space elevator, the main transportation hub. Then I just figured, yeah, I want to, you know, move on. I want to do the custom bridges. Then I want to do the high density city core, the main plaza with all the neons and high density stuff. Then I wanted to do maybe some kind of train stations here and there, you know, disconnected. Then I just wanted to move completely away from the rest of the city, do the dams, do the little village there next to the dams, and then towards the end, I had to return and just stitch all those places together, and eventually towards the end do the suburbs, do some kind of ends. So usually, and it was exactly the same in Aurelia, and actually kind of similar in Altengrad in the 1930s when I was just building the first version of the city. Some kind of like satisfaction of building the series, of building the city is very high towards the start. Then it's kind of going down towards the end, and it reaches some sort of a bottom, but right towards the end, at the very end, it just shoots up again because the rest of the city is finally getting finished, and I can finally observe the whole thing. And that's what counts the most at the end of the day, because I really don't like building some sort of dioramas where I cannot really show the whole thing. I cannot do like low angle shots, screenshots, videos, cinematics, because you would just see that there's nothing around it, right? But here in Asturis right now, I can do that already, because no matter where I look, the entire city is complete. So yeah, sure, I did not exactly materialize all the specific plans that I had for the city, but at the end of the day, it's complete, and that's what counts the most. So since I already mentioned the original plans for the city, let's talk about that for a while. So right when I was ending Aurelia, I immediately knew that the futuristic theme is not exhausted. And actually even now, when I finished Asturis, the futuristic theme definitely has a lot more things to offer still. There are some elements that I did not explore at all. I did not really overdo it too much with the cyberpunky style. I did not overdo it with the neons and the lights and everything, even though there are a lot, but there still can be a lot more, or like areas that are just specifically designed to take in a lot of those ads and neons and everything. So there are definitely places, or there's definitely room for something else with the style. I would really like to continue doing some kind of tropical style though. I think it's a very nice combination, and again, it's definitely not exhausted just yet. But I do have some more ideas for like inner city places. Unfortunately, the outskirts, that's probably just going to be more of the same, unless I figure out something completely different. But anyways, back to the original plans. So I ended Aurelia. I wanted to do another futuristic series, but I just wanted to start it with something big, something great. I knew that I need to make my own custom map. At first, I wanted to make like really high map, like with lots of mountains that are just going to be super tall, and there's going to be a huge height difference between the bottoms of valleys and tops of the mountains. It's not exactly possible to do that in City Skylines. Even though the mountains in here on this map are actually quite large, they are still not what I imagined at first, I guess. I don't know. City Skylines 2 in this regard is better because the height range is much greater, but yeah, unfortunately Cities 2 is what it is. So, you know, there are some advantages in it right now, but they cannot really be fully used. But anyways, I wanted to build some sort of main structure, some kind of, not even a space elevator back in the day, but just some kind of a transportation hub. And it would be right on the tip of some mountain range going into some coastline. So it would be a building that would be built on a very steep slope, and it would be a train station, very vertical train station, monorail station, like hyperloop, trams, buses, whatever, everything, yeah? And down below there might have been some sort of a harbor. It would have been built with procedural objects only, obviously. But when I started building the map, it just became clear that, yeah, I'm not exactly going to be able to do that. The rest of the city was supposed to be highly vertical as well. I wanted to build it mostly on the slopes of those mountains, and on the bottoms of valleys there would be like parks, rivers, you know, low density stuff, that sort of thing. And there would be lots of bridges connecting or going over the valleys, connecting the mountain ranges. And it would be just that kind of like high density, messy looking places. Unfortunately, it would just not be possible to do in City Skylines. Well, maybe, but in just those little dioramas. Maybe I would be able to do that main building like I described it, even though it's a very vague idea. Who knows how it would turn out. But doing the rest of the city like that, it would be crazy because it would be basically all procedural objects, and the game's engine would just not take it. That's just the unfortunate thing when it comes to City Skylines 1 and 2, that the performance eventually comes around and bites you in the butt, because you're going to imagine something, you're going to just over-detail it, overbuild it, and then you're going to zoom out and realize, hey, why do I have single-digit FPS, you know? And it doesn't really matter what kind of hardware you're running, so it's eventually going to happen to everyone. That's why Asturis, at the end, what we are seeing is not really all that detailed, all that crazy detailed, because it really cannot be. These cinematics that I recorded, by the way, I had to... The ones that are showing the rest of the entire city, those are actually recorded at 10% game speed. and I'm speeding them up in editing 20 times. So, you know, a minute cinematic takes 20 minutes to record. That's a lot. This entire video took me like the entire weekend to just record. So yeah, the original plans were cancelled and I just defaulted to the tried and true building on flat ground, mostly. At least when it comes to the main part of the city. The verticality that the city has is then not really done by terrain, but by detailing. So all the networks at the main transportation hub, of course, the high-speed train is at the top. Actually, the flying train is at the top. Then down below, there is the high-speed, then the normal, then trams, and then the street for buses and pedestrians. Obviously, there are a lot of these streets in the sky all around the city. That's all the green paths, just twisting between the skyscrapers, going over streets, going into this Olympic Park as well. Here it just changes color, just so it's a little bit different some places. And yeah, it's vertical this way. Still, I would like to experiment in the future with some kind of verticality, like terrain-wise verticality, but like high density still. It's somewhat easy to do that with low density. You can even do that pretty much in vanilla game. You can just zone some kind of, twisting paths with low density structures. And it's going to look like some sort of mountain village maybe. But I would really like to just do super high density on very high slopes. I don't really know if it's going to be possible to do it in CS1, if I'm just going to have the time and will and whatnot. I would just really like to jump into CS2 already with these kinds of things, but custom assets are going to be who knows when, and that's just the official support for them. But the assets actually need to be then created. We are still not having all the mods and those kinds of things. So, it's actually going to be years. Without exaggeration, it's going to be years. Like, let's be absolutely real. So, I don't know, maybe I'm going to start another CS1 series where I'm just going to explore something like that. Maybe I could actually give some dioramas a try, at least for some sort of specific ideas. Actually, by the way, just when AI images started to become somewhat, common, I started experimenting with just like asking the AI those ideas that I had. So, for example, futuristic, valley, train station, tropical, something like that. And it would give me some kind of images. And I was surprised that, yeah, that's kind of what I imagined before. So I was thinking of actually using AI images to just like materialize my ideas a little bit more and just have them on the second monitor, and build the city so that I have like a clearer picture. I don't really need to experiment with shapes and stuff that much because I already have it visualized a little bit. So that might actually be a really nice tool for city building, to have those geometries already presented and you can immediately see if it works, if it doesn't visually, So maybe I'm going to be using that in the future as well. But anyways, back to Asturis. So eventually I did a couple of these more interesting projects, mostly towards the city center, towards the edges of the city. I just did the tried and true, the suburbs, highways, those kinds of things. Eventually I just started doing the natural detailing, the ponds, rocks, trees everywhere, which complements the city nicely. The tropical environment is just so rewarding when doing this natural detailing. So that's one reason why I picked it. It's obviously creating a nice color contrast as well. I especially like the contrast between the sea and the trees, the blue and green, like very green and very blue colors. And the rest of the city is just sitting somewhere in the middle. So that's really nice. Now, by the way, I'm not exactly showing you any night shots of the city. Maybe in some places because they are really nice. But when I was recording this, it became clear that I just cannot fit everything in a single video. This one is going to have like 24 minutes or something. So that's already kind of long. So I'm probably going to make like a separate night view video, just a showcase of the city. Maybe I'm just going to put some music in the background as well, because what am I going to talk about there? But I would really like to just focus on some of the night views of the city because especially now that I downloaded the RTGI shader with the reshade mod, or it's not a mod, it's like a third-party software that you can put like an overlay on top of the game, because it's creating that ray tracing effect. There is also the shader for reflections, so that's what I used in that first-person ride, and that's what I would really like to use for maybe doing some sort of cinematics of the night city, because obviously during the night it shines the most, literally. But unfortunately, the shaders are not really working very well for these kinds of views. For some reason, they turn off when you move the camera to look down, from the top down. They only work when you have the camera pointing like at a very low angles. So from first-person views and those kinds of things. So I'm probably going to do maybe a couple of like static shots or something, because you know, the cinematic camera that we have in City Skylines unfortunately doesn't really support just moving the angle low. You can put the point there, but it's not actually going to display anything. It's going to just jump the camera up, because the cinematic camera for some reason just defaults to the vanilla, you know, position restrictions. So that's unfortunate. Again, City Skylines 2 has this so much better. You can actually control the camera as you would in some kind of 3D software when you are in the photo mode. So that's just another one of those little improvements that kind of give me hope for CS2's future, especially when it comes to detailing. But it's just so not there with so many other things. Unfortunately, it's just going to be years, like I said. Well, anyways, so this is now looking at the high density places of the city. By the way, some of these neons and some of these details there on the ground, those are not part of the episodes where I built these places. This is what I actually had to do to just make that first person ride, the previous one, a little bit better. Yeah, a little bit more detailed here and there. So I just included a whole bunch of these ads, more of them on the buildings, a couple more lights here and there, and overall I just played with the lighting and just the scenery around the first-person perspective. Unfortunately, light sources in CS1, they are just not all that great. Again, CS2 just does that better. It's one of those tiny details that are kind of irrelevant right now, but are going to be really big when we get to this point. So again, it has the potential, but you know, it's not there yet. Well, anyways, this is definitely not all from this series, from Asturis series, because I would still like to do a couple of first-person rides. There is one tram line that I did not touch yet. It's the one going from the industrial zone, the one I built in the last building episode, and it goes all the way to the government center. Well, it actually doesn't. It's two separate lines, but I will make a switch where they meet, where these lines meet, all right? Because the tracks actually don't physically connect there. So, but it's like a nice ride through the city center again. Might do it during the night as well, just like the previous one, even though it's not going through the more lit areas. But I will see. Maybe I'm just going to do both, you know, like I did with the previous two rides. Then there are trains, of course. Those are going to be much shorter. Maybe I could just do the trains in a single video, all of them, including the flying train and the high-speed trains. That might be interesting. And then you guys asked for some sort of a traffic public transport overview. Yeah, sure, I might do that. It's definitely not as big. The entire network is not as big as in Aurelia, so there's not that much to talk about, really. But sure, I could do some sort of a short overview of that as well. But anyways, that is going to be it for this one. Thank you guys for watching it. If you liked it, then please do all the things below the video. You know the drill: clicking, rating, subscribing, sharing, and huge thanks to channel members who are directly supporting this channel and me in what I'm doing here. Much appreciated, guys. Take care and goodbye.